quotas going, there are many farmers in Ireland that are keen to expand, we'll say, and some people think that technical issues are you know, if they're good at cows and grass, we'll say that success will automatically follow. Your comments on that, we'll say that are cows and grass, is that 100% the answer to successful expansion?
Look, cows and grass is absolutely crucial. That will take you so far, and that will enable you to be successful with your first step on the ladder.
Yeah.
But the next steps are more about people management. And was it one of our directors refers in Dairy Holdings, he says quite simply, people think we milk cows and harvest pasture. We don't. We actually manage people. And that's the most key part. And we see it quite often with a number of our operators on farms, that they can grow successful businesses until they're operating around 400 or 500 cows. But it's that next step, it's that transition where they grow their business expertise and they're starting to handle in excess of 1,000 cows. At that point, they're actually managing people, and that's where they really step up in their own business growth. And that's when they build that speed, that momentum in their own business growth at the same time.
And just to a different topic, in terms of when Dairy Holdings are looking at as a farm up for sale, if you're thinking of perhaps buying it, how do you evaluate whether there's a green light or a red light, we'll say that, in terms of purchasing it?
Yes. While that's a simple question, it's a very difficult answer, and because it very much depends on what's happening in the wider marketplace, the dynamics on the board and amongst the shareholder base, all at the same time. I guess it's fair to say that while the shareholders of Dairy Holdings have been very successful in their own right, they don't have aspirations to own all of New Zealand, and so any deal needs to stack up on its own merits. It needs to deliver value for the shareholders, and equally, shareholders like cash along with everyone else. So the ability to generate a cash return is absolutely key. So our analysis would always revolve around net present values and just the ability for cash to drop out of an opportunity. As well as that, we're not just about picking up that farm down the road. Usually for us there needs to be a synergy. It needs to be able to utilise water that we may have unlocked from our efficiency gains elsewhere, or the block may satisfy a need in terms of winter grazing, which enables us to have greater control on the wider business. So usually it's not just one criteria that would get a purchase decision over the line. It's got to take, it's got to survive that test on a number of fronts.
It's got to fit in with the general operation and strengthen the overall business.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if I was just to ask you on financial criteria, would you have minimum sort of requirements in the financial area? Would say that it may fit, would say it may be where you want it and everything else. How would you determine how much you're prepared to pay for it? The value as you would see it of that farm?
The rough rule of thumb we've always had over the years is that a new business opportunity needs to be satisfying approximately a 10% return on capital. And if we're able to achieve something in excess of that, then you feel quite good. But as I say, that's only one part of the puzzle. Usually there's a value increment that comes from the development of the property. You're bringing water, you're bringing nutrients, which is now a key driver in New Zealand, or just simply you might be gaining control of what was a very, very crucial expenditure item for us in that particular area. So there's always, while the return is part of it, there's always got to be something else.
So you look at return, but equally you're also looking at, does it fit in terms of, does it introduce risks, let's say, which are perhaps unacceptable to you?
Oh, very much so. And I'd go so far as to say that if it's introducing additional risk, then where it puts existing operations at risk, then we would really query each time why we would be doing it. Got to remember, Dairy Holdings now is quite a successful, dynamic organisation, and so we're really looking to de-risk ourselves all the time and grow.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit, Colin, will say that de-risking a business. What are some of the steps that you've taken to de-risking Dairy Holdings? And what are some of the areas that you would look at in terms of needing to be very careful of risk?
Well, certainly through the career progression structures that we've got in place, the number one risk and that's both a positive and a negative around a business anywhere, in our belief, is around the people. And being able to attract and retain successful people is really, really key. And so a lot of the structures we've put in place are around bringing those people into the business. On a wider sense, it's about removing the financial risk to the business. So a lot of that revolves around our main costs on farm, which are winter grazing, feed costs, young stock grazing and young stock growing costs. And so on many of those fronts, because underlying we're really control freaks at heart, a lot of those things we try and have a philosophy that if we are not prepared to undertake those operations ourselves because we can't make them pay, then that's actually a risk to our business. So we need to be able to step in and operate those parts of the business well. So increasingly, a lot of dairy holdings, as it's grown, it's also diversified and invested both up and down our value chain to de-risk the business. So as a company, we're probably one of the more cooperatively minded multi-farm businesses in New Zealand, just because we've got that real focus around de-risking, both beyond the farm gate as well as within our boundaries as well.
Okay. It's talking of de-risking, was said that would you give me perhaps 2 or 3 specific instances of de-risking things, when you're saying controlling things, also that are being less exposed to particular risk? Would you just work through the process and say 1 or 2 items just to give people a feel?
Probably one of the first ones that comes to mind is really the importance of young stock in a business. And what's been quite common in New Zealand over the years is that where you've got a growing dairy business, our focus goes first and foremost on developing the land and getting that land into production as quickly as possible. And often the young stock become the item on the balance sheet, the asset that you worry about secondarily. And that typically means that for a growing business, you're going out into the marketplace, you're grabbing stock that aren't always at the level that you would desire them to be, but at the same time they still enable you to grow the business quickly. What Dairy Holdings did in the earlier years is we, for example, were running all of our young stock on less well irrigated or even more marginal land. And as a way of de-risking the business over years, we really looked at the importance of growing those young stock out well, getting them in calf in a tight calving spread, and really de-risking that part of the business. And that meant for us setting up special purpose young stock operations. And the day we did that was the day we were able to then step up our standards in terms of performance and the rest of the dairy business.